Hey everyone, welcome back. So I'm stuck at a supercharger, and I was actually listening to Jerome Powell's speech that he gave out yesterday, where the Federal Reserve decided to keep interest rates constant without implementing any changes. And I was listening to the questions that the reporter were posting, and one of the reporters said, well, Mr. Jerome Powell, what do you have to say to the millions of Americans who are constantly having to deal with high interest rates on their credit cards, their car payments, and even mortgages that they cannot even access to? To which Jerome Powell responded that it's worse to have a high inflation, and that all of the American people are basically feeling the effect of high inflation in the economy. But that is a much worse problem that Americans have to deal with, and that interest rates have to be high for the foreseeable future in order to bring inflation down. Well, that made me think how we can get out of this problem. And I think that it comes down to the basic fundamental level that I think that millions of people don't understand. And that is that your purchasing power, if you are a W-2 earner, always goes down. And this is true for people who are living paycheck to paycheck, say earning $50,000 a year. Other people who are also earning $100,000 a year. I found that it's much more difficult nowadays to basically support their living styles. And even for people who are high, quote unquote, high income earners, inflation is a force that always is working against you. So let me explain. Say, for example, you just started a job. You are earning, say, $100,000. And so you lack in your salary. You're earning $100,000 in a year. That is what they're gonna pay you. But during this time, inflation goes up, or at best it just remains constant. That means that automatically you are losing your purchasing power within that year. And then that becomes a much highly visible problem year after year of you continuing staying in that job without really having a very drastic change in your salary. Let me explain. So basically, I know that a lot of people, they normally have salary increases year by year, bonuses, etc. But that is not enough to keep pace with the high inflation that we are facing. And this becomes much more visible whenever inflation just gets a little bit out of control, like we have seen in the past few years. So they say that normally they want to keep the target at 2%, but we have seen inflation rates as high as 5%. I think that's 7% or even 8 to 9% at some point. And the impact that this have in your future purchasing power, it is mind-blowing. I mean, it is something that you're not going to feel right away, but year after year, it's just eroding your purchasing power. It is eroding your lifestyle. It is just something that is continuously working against you being able to progress in life. It is something that people don't really understand, because it's very hard to feel when they say we want to keep the target at 2%. 2% is just a small variation. But if your income, is your W-2 income, does not keep up with the actual inflation that we are seeing, then you're going to see much drastic effects in your purchasing power, and you're gonna eventually either have to resort to making lifestyle changes, cut out on expenses. I mean, this is something that people don't really understand, but decades ago, only there was a time that only one income was enough to support an entire family. And now even two people working, man and wife, husband and wife, they cannot even meet, basically create enough money or earn enough money to support a family. And this is getting worse and worse with the years. Like I said, it's very hard to feel when inflation is just constant, but the inflation, if it is there, if it is present, and that is part of our monetary policy, it is something that is always working against you. It's like an extra tax, like an extra expense, that if you don't earn enough, or if you don't increase your salary drastically year by year, either by switching jobs or by getting more skill and charging more, eventually it's gonna just completely erode your lifestyle. All right, so what can we do in order to solve this problem? Well, the only way that you have in order to completely slash this problem is you gotta own assets that are completely immune to inflation. For example, the other day I was listening to a podcast of a couple that was about to retire. And the couple was analyzing their finances, and they basically stated that they have some rental properties that they can live off of. And the person that they were talking to, who was sort of like a financial advisor, that person said, well, are you worried about high inflation? What if you retire now, but then inflation all of a sudden gets out of control? Are you worried about that? And they basically answered in a very smart way, saying, well, rents keep up with inflation. So if inflation goes up, we just increase the rent. And right away, you can see the impact that owning an asset have on your long-term view of your finances. So one thing that I will say to you is, if you are just relying on having a salary until you retire and then living off of that income, inflation is something that you always will have to worry about. It always gonna work. It's going to work against you. You're always gonna have to worry about that inflation all of a sudden gets out of control, and it's not good. You have to own assets that generate cash flow. You have to own assets that are basically able to keep up with inflation, no matter what inflation increase to. And that is something that I am very passionate about. I think that is something that years ago I did not understand, as working a highly paid corporate job. But now I do, and now I see, if I don't own assets, I'm gonna be stuck in the rat race until the day I retire, and then I'm gonna have to worry about my lifestyle expenses until the day I die. So on this channel, I want to help you to get out of that rat race, to understand how money works, because all you have to do is to understand how money works in order to be able to play the game of money. All right, so that's it for this video. I'm done charging now, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks, guys.